Thank you very much for everybody coming. So we're going to talk about the liver today and a master organ and how amazing it is. It's an organ that is probably the most important organ for longevity, for your immune system, for your skin, for your hair, for women's hormones. It's pretty interesting. My background, I've been in phytomedicine development for 30 years, primarily focused on the liver, but in detoxification for all 30 of those. My medical board consists of some of the top hepatologists, endocrinologists, stem cell experts, liver transplant surgeons. My chief medical officer was a liver, pancreatic, and biliary oncologist surgeon from Cleveland Clinic. My expertise is from 30 years in the field and surrounding myself with some of the most brilliant minds in medicine. So I'm a kind of collective of all of that. We do clinical studies all over the world. We're a British biotech company. We have 20 clinics around, and we're expanding with that as well. We have partnerships such as with, we're an official partner of MAHA. So we're doing a lot with what Bobby Kennedy's doing, and Dr. Malone, and Dr. McCullough, as well as clinics such as Lanzerhof, Randox, the Four Seasons Hotels, Peninsula Group. So the hero of today is the liver. And as you can see, it's a beautiful organ. It is the largest internal organ in the body. The largest organ we have is the skin. The largest internal is the liver. And most people don't know where it is. It actually starts about at the center of your chest and your chest bone. The top of the liver is where your nipple is, and the bottom of your liver follows the contour of the rib cage. And that is through evolution. It's pulled up to protect us from from if we fall or get hit. So your liver is actually up here. Most people think it's down here. It's up here. And as I said, it's a largest organ. A great way to describe it is it's about the size of a small chihuahua. 500 functions. No organ in the human body is more complex and does more things than the liver. One organ. There's also thousands of different enzymatic functions it has, but 500 main ones. Most people don't realize that the liver is under threat until it's too late, which we'll talk about some of those things. So here I was saying, so this is a WHO statistic. And all these other colored lines are other diseases, and this is a global statistic. So, right, cancers we're slowly pushing down. Heart disease is coming down. Heart attacks and strokes are coming down. Diabetes is coming down. Cancers is coming down. This outlier, that's liver disease. So 400%. It's getting a faster ahead than we can keep up with modern medicine. What are the things that are driving that? Well, processed foods, high fructose corn syrup, pharmaceuticals, insecticides, pesticides, glyphosate, overuse of pharmaceuticals. So all these things that didn't exist 50 years ago, it completely correlates with that as well. We're starting to see now, part of what we do with Maha and with Dr. Phil, we're very interested in. 17% of teenagers in this country now have fatty liver disease. 12% of children under the age of 10, right? That's that didn't exist 30 years ago. It's also why you get weird things like, I doubt anybody in this room knew anybody with peanut allergies 40 years ago, right? Too many vaccines, too many chemicals. We're overloading the body's ability to deal with systematic reactions. Hence, we're seeing, some of these phenomena. So, as I was saying, it's central to regulation of vital functions across all your systems. The liver is so complex that it is one of the few organs that we cannot replicate with technology. So if your lungs go out, we have an iron lung, we can keep you alive that way. We can transplant a heart, we can put a mechanical heart, we can do that. Kidneys, dialysis as well. If your liver goes out, there's no way to keep you alive. All we can do is try to keep you alive until we can get you a transplant. And the average wait list is about 12 months. So liver disease is all asymptomatic. You don't really know you have anything wrong until it's major. So you don't feel it. There's no really nerve endings in the liver. So you're not feeling like liver pain. There's things around it which we need to look for, like brain fog, yellowing of the skin, bad sleep. So liver disease contributes to cardiovascular disease, hormone imbalances as well, mental decline, cancer, and many other aspects of health. It's speculated now that liver disease is responsible for 70% of chronic disease. So root cause medicine is very much why the liver is so important. Hormone imbalances as well. A lot of our customers as well that we help are actually menopausal or perimenopausal women, and that's because the liver is in charge of your hormones. So it's balancing them, it's controlling them, it's getting rid of the old ones, it's helping with the new ones, and it's keeping you, from being estrogen dominant. Progesterone and estrogen are the two main hormones that we need to look at in women's health, and we want to keep them in balance. As I said, 38% of people in the Western world have MAFLD. MAFLD stands for metabolic associated fatty liver disease. Now, really important, 70% of liver disease is non-alcohol related. Great way to kind of describe that is the highest percentage of fatty liver disease in the world is Iran. And everybody knows Iran has 0 alcohol. India, we think, could be as high as 50%. Once again, population with very low alcohol. So it's those other things that are driving it. When I was a child, and most of us were young, everybody familiar with cirrhosis of the liver? So cirrhosis is what alcoholics got. And back then it was about 6% of people with cirrhosis were non-drinkers. 94% was with alcohol. As of 2022, that is flipped. 51% of cirrhosis patients today is not associated with alcohol. So alcohol is not even the major cause of cirrhosis now. 63% of men aged 40 to 65 have fatty liver disease. So it's actually disproportionate from a gender perspective. 2/3 of people with liver disease are men, 1/3 are women. It's kind of the opposite of Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, 70% are women, 30% are men. So your sex does make a lot of difference in it as well. So when I say 38%, that's everybody. That's 18-year-old kids at college, and that's everybody. But men specifically, it's much, much, much bigger. Liver disease cases are projected to increase by 350 million in the next 7 years. Right? This is a 2 billion person problem we have. It's just a map right here. I can send this to anybody afterwards too. If you want to shoot me an email, I'm more than welcome to share it. I do a lot of talks you guys can read as well. So when I got into this, we were at about 21% had fatty liver disease. 38.9 is now. 43 will be 2030. So the FDA and HHS, NHS in the UK predict 50% of the population will have fatty liver disease by 2040. So that's very fast. 1 in 3 Americans have MAFLD, rising to 9 out of 10 of obese. So if somebody's obese, 90% chance they have fatty liver disease. But half of patients with fatty liver disease aren't obese. So it's affecting others as well, especially, like I said, ethnicities, young women. Some of the worst cases we see are actually teenagers that drink a lot of diet soda. So I've been kind of pontificating about the risks of that diet soda versus a regular soda, which doesn't make sense. You're like, well, there's no sugar in it, right? There's no fat in it. But the chemicals that are in a diet soda and fake are so dangerous to your liver that your liver will look at sugar, it will look at fat. It will say, I understand you, I know how to deal with you, I'm gonna let you go now, and I'm gonna deal with the bigger threat, which is aspartame or this chemical. So it lets that go by. So you're actually processing less fat and sugar, so that's why your fatty liver is going up, because your liver is so focused on this threat that's a chemical threat that it does not understand. 55% of type 2 diabetics have MAFLD. It's probably closer to 70%, but we're going off of that published data. 70% of patients with high lipid levels. So if you've got lipids or cholesterols or fats. So if you've got high cholesterol, 70% chance you have fatty liver. And 27% is the second most common indication for liver transplantation. Liver transplantation is very scary. It's about a 12-month wait list, and 50% of people on the list do not make it because when it goes out, we can't keep you alive long enough. Little visual of what it looks like. So you got a healthy liver, that's what this is looking for too. The healthier liver is soft and squishy. The softer, the squishier it is, the healthier it is. When it starts to get fatty, its ability to break down fats goes down, and its ability to expand and retract goes down. Plus your insulin resistance and the receptors, how to deal with sugar, diminishes, and then you start to get fatty. That's what steatosis is. Once you start to get above 40%, you'll start to get inflammation. And inflammation, obviously, it's bigger, it's stiffer. You start to get collagen, too much fat. That fat comes into the liver. It looks like veins. That causes scarring. And that scarring is what's known as NASH or MASH. Fibrosis, scarring, cirrhosis, and then cirrhosis as well. So those are hepatotic cancers, which we don't want to get. So that's how, as your liver gets fatty, it leads into other things. Yes, sir?
What stage does dialysis
occur? We have dialysis for kidneys. There's experimentations with it, and it is somewhat used, but you don't really dialysis the liver as much. Because the liver is so complex and regenerating, that's why we haven't been able to figure out how to replicate it with technology yet. My partner who's on my board, Professor Rajiv Jalan, who's head of UCL, they've had a machine they've been playing with for a while to do it, but they haven't got it yet as well. They do filters, because if a liver function goes down, it'll start to actually get bigger, and you'll have to start draining it because it's too much fluid, and that's why some people with cirrhosis have like this crazy belly, because the liver is enlarged. Another cool thing about the liver is the liver does most of its repair while we sleep. So between 1 to 3 a.m. So when we sleep, the two biggest physiological things that happen is our brain stores all the memories for the day. It's kind of like, in a computer, you turn it off and you can hear the hard drive caching. Brain works the same way. The other thing is your liver does all of its repair. And during the day, maybe after a big meal, or you've had some alcohol, or it's doing its thing, your liver can actually grow by 40%. So it'll actually go like this, and it'll come back down. That's why softer and squishier, the better it can do its thing. That's one of the things we're measuring for here, is we're measuring stiffness to try to see how stiff it is, and then we can pick up if there's scars in there. Most of the scarring, to be fair, is probably going to be from either fatty liver disease or pharmaceutical damage as well, and alcohol. So these are risk factors of NAFLD. So what's it, NAFLD is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it was not caused by alcohol, and that's the bigger focus, because alcohol-induced, we know why it happened, and we know how it happened, and we know how that works. This is actually much more complex, and in the transplant world, we didn't really see fatty liver, before the 80s, which correlates with high fructose corn syrup, and diet sodas came into the American diet in the early 80s, and that's when we started seeing fatty livers in transplants. So metabolic syndrome and obesity, that's what I was saying earlier as well. That's one of the things you get with fatty liver. Funny, I had a big debate actually with the head of cardiology at Mayo, Dr. Hill in London. I said, are you scanning your cardiovascular patients for fatty liver? He said, well, no, there's not a correlation. I said, of course there is. And I said, just tell me if I'm wrong. Aren't two of the biggest driving factors for cardiovascular disease type 2 diabetes? He's like, absolutely. Okay, is it metabolic syndrome? Absolutely. The root cause of both of those is fatty liver. So fatty liver will lead to metabolic disorder, and it will lead to type 2 diabetes, which then drives cardiovascular disease. We're working with UC Irvine on a study, and we think that we'll prove that more people will die of cardiovascular disease than are dying of liver disease because of fatty liver. So fatty liver is driving more mortality through cardiovascular channel than it is actually through liver. Polypharmacy uses drugs such as calcium channel blockers, anti-inflammatory drugs, steroids. That's driving this as well. In the UK, we have a thing called paracetamol, or it's acetaminophen in this country, or Tylenol. One dose of paracetamol does as much damage to your liver as 6 pints of beer. That's the damage it can do as well. We were working with the poison control out of Denver that controls most of the western United States. Some of the largest poison things they have is teenagers trying to commit suicide by taking too much Tylenol. And it generally just causes a tremendous amount of damage, because what happens is acetaminophen dissolves liver tissue. So if you have a headache, just a good piece of advice, most headaches are actually dehydration. Try to drink some water first, see if that helps. Then if you really need one, right, nobody wants to be in pain, an ibuprofen or an Advil is a better route to go. Whilst it's stressful on the kidneys, it's much, much less damaging on the liver. Alcohol, as we know, acts synergistically with obesity and increases the risk of mortality and morbidity. Once again, let's say alcohol does a damage factor of 1, Tylenol does a damage factor of 2. If you take them at the same time, that's not 1 + 1 is 2, that's 1 × 1 + equals 5. So way more damage with that as well. Especially if any women or any women you know that are on hormone replacement therapy, if you drink 3 times a week, your chance of breast cancer goes up by 300%. If you drink 5 times a week while on active hormone therapy, it goes up by a factor of 500%. That was a study done on 10,000 women across Scandinavia, and we're looking at the effects. And the reason is because hormone replacement therapy is so intense on the liver that if you're overwhelming the liver, then its ability to get rid of the old hormones and to process those hormones goes down dramatically. Environmental toxins, we discussed that, alcohol, PFAs, sometimes microplastics, we're seeing that a lot too. You heard all this about microplastics. We get microplastics in water bottles, sometimes in food containers. Fish is actually probably one of the biggest drivers. I think we're taking in something like a credit card a month worth of microplastics. And that's because, microbeads of plastic, teeny fish eats that, not as tiny fish eats that, and so on and so forth. So when you're eating tuna, swordfish, besides the heavy metals, it sucks because they're the tastiest fish of all of them. They've also got the highest metals, but they've also got the most microplastics. So when you're eating those microplastics are going out throughout the body, and that's causing endocrine disruption, it's causing cancer, it's causing all kinds of issues as well. So it's another environmental toxin is that. Rapid weight loss, gastric bypass surgery, bowel disease. I won't go too much into it with GLP-1s and Ozempics. And one of the things that we're seeing or very worried about from a pancreatic cancer risk is your chance of pancreatitis goes up by 900% if you're on a GLP-1. And the long-term effects on the pancreas are not yet known. That being said, being obese is incredibly unhealthy too, so there's good or bad. If anybody does do a GLP-1, what we highly, highly recommend is you need to have a good nutritionist and a dietitian And you have to be doing strength training because up to 50% of your weight loss can be muscle. And as we know, when we get older, it's very hard to put muscle back on. And a lot of times, I think it's 70% of people that come off put the weight back on. So you might have got rid of 40 pounds, 20 were muscle and 20 were fat. You put that weight back on, you now put 40 pounds of fat back on and not the muscle. So we've got to be very careful what we're eating. Strength training is really important. Poor nutrition, kind of we covered that. Insulin resistance, as the liver gets fattier, its ability to deal with sugars comes down. It's literally less surface area, so reactivity and resistance changes. And the gene loci associated with development, like I was saying, the South Asian population, African American community, or African in general, anywhere in the world, is all relatives. So advanced diagnostics, we do blood tests, and we do blood tests specifically to looking for, like we all go every year and get an MOT, and we're looking at, kidney function, liver function, everything as well. We need to do more sophisticated ones, such as, food intolerances, epigenetic testing. So testing is getting really good. But what we notice in these studies is that about 80 to 90% of people with fatty liver disease is not showing up on a blood test. So we're like, okay, we need to now start getting more into scanning and doing more scanning. So scanning, you've got MRI, which everybody's familiar with. It's very accurate for certain things, for certain injuries. You're looking for a tumor, but it's expensive, it's claustrophobic, it's noisy, it's just not really a pleasant experience. So we do MRIs at our clinics, but we try to reserve that for somebody that's more ill. This technology, which is called FibroScan, is a French technology, gold standard. It's in 170 countries in the world. It's fast, it's quick, it's inexpensive, and it's highly accurate. It's so safe that it's approved if you're pregnant, if you have a pacemaker, and you can do it on children. And we're just using sound and vibrations to go into the liver, and then we're measuring liver fat, stiffness, so we can get a really good look instantly. You don't have to wait a couple days for the results, and it's very accurate. If we see something that we're very concerned about, then we might upgrade you to an MRI or a CAT scan. CAT scans aren't that accurate for fatty liver. MRIs are okay, but you really have to have it programmed and have somebody really good on it. This is probably we find to be the best as well. So this is part of the solution, right? So we just told you, all this scary stuff and negatives and why it's happening. But now, to have a problem, to fix a problem, you need to know you have a problem. So diagnostics are key. That's why getting regular blood tests done, things like in-body, going and getting checks done, talking to nutritionists, all these things could prevent us from even having to go there to get a diagnostic. But I think screening is very key. Healthy lifestyle, movement, exercise. A lot of people don't like running. I'm not a big runner either, but I just read a really cool report that came out of Harvard, and it's called the 30-12 rule. If you did 30 minutes of running versus 30 minutes of walking at a 12% incline, you'll actually burn more fat. So you have less trouble on the joints. And the reason is when you're running and you get into that state, you actually will start to burn more sugar. Whereas a really brisk walk at a 12-degree angle, you're burning almost pure fat. So on the treadmill, if you can get it under 12 degrees and do a 30-minute walk a day, that's going to make a huge difference for weight loss. Plus, after you eat, one of the best things you can do to prevent glucose spikes and to get your metabolism going is just go for a walk for 5 minutes. Even if it's just around the house or do a chore, but try to move after you eat. That's something we can all do. It's free. It doesn't really take any time, and it's going to really change our glucose levels as well, and then help that build up. This is Deliverance. This is one of our kind of a hero product that we spent 18 years of R&D on. I gave everybody one here to take a 3-pack. So there's one for you to take, save one for later, give one to a friend. It's an all-natural plant-based elixir. We can reverse fatty liver disease in 3 to 6 months. We also, as liver function increases, your cholesterol balances out. I think a lot of people take it too because it gives you a shot of mental clarity. So when you take it later, drink it. You have to follow with a glass of water. You should start to get mental clarity, and that'll last about 6 hours. Or women that take the product, they tend to take it in the afternoon because a woman's circadian clock is slightly different than a man's. Women tend to get an energetic dip in the afternoon, generally between 2 to 5. That's the time to take it. And a lot of, like Dr. Mahdi and a lot of doctors I work with, they used to take a coffee at that time. Now they take the Deliverance, so they get the energy, but they're also getting all the health benefits as well. We work holistically, so we do with alcohol, supports metabolism. It's super high in antioxidants. 18 years of R&D, we've soft launched the last 12 months. In the last 12 months, all organically, by us treating reporters and journalists, just not paid, all organic. We've been in New York Times, Financial Times, GQ, Vogue, Wired, all these great publications. Forbes is doing an article on us. That journalist actually has probably one of the worst cases of foodborne food poisoning you can imagine. She developed hepatitis from a bad oyster and has had severe medical issues from that. So it's nuts, but we're really trying to help because she had to go through a form of chemotherapy to try to get rid of the bacterial infections that developed because of that bad oyster, which it sucks. I love oysters and I'm kind of like really hesitant now, so it's kind of ruined my oyster game. But there's an example of some of the studies that we did. So the top is a control, so that's just a normal person with a healthy liver. You could say purple, the little white spots are just little bits of blood vessels. The second one is called a Western Standard Diet. So when we did this clinical study, or you do one here, maybe at University of Miami, or you do it at Harvard or whatever, if you want to reduce fatty liver disease, you put somebody on a Western Standard Diet. I mean, that's the term that they use, what the average Westerner person drinks. So the amount of fats, cholesterol, preservatives. See all that white bits? That's now a fatty liver. This was a Western Standard Diet with Deliverance. So there was actually less fat with Deliverance and Western Standard Diet than there was on a control. And then those white globules are actually blood vessels. So we're increasing blood flow in the liver. So when we actually work on blood flow, oxygenation in the blood, neurotransmission in the brain, because you have to look at the body holistically. You know, as I was saying, just going to the gym, but if your diet sucks, isn't going to be good. Or maybe you got good diet and you go to the gym, but you're a drama queen, that's not good. So it's like life's about balance and equilibrium. We got to kind of try to be less stress, better food, more positivity, get moving, and remove unnecessary toxins from our diet. Those are just some stats on cholesterol that we improved. And just a nice quote I like, we use a lot of old quotes. You know, one is, let food be thy medicine and medicine thy food. I think that's a very important principle that we all have. And I love this one. It's the most mighty hath created medicines out of the earth, and a wise man will not abhor them. That's why when you're on a healthier diet and you're eating better and eating more from the earth, you're going to have less health problems. So eating fresh or organic or farmers markets, wash your vegetables when you get them at the store. That's a key. If you ever go through those processes, you like take alkaline water or acidic water and you wash your veg, all the pesticides and the crap that floats to the top, even if they're organic, it's always good to wash them because the farm next door may not be, and that blows over onto it as well. So water is very important as well. Drinking good water is key, and just trying to eat clean as well. Remember, processed foods, any food that says diet, light, or fat-free, I want you to think of this crass term, which is chemical shitstorm. That's what it does to your body. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you very much.